with coverage you can count on. This is WNEM TV5 News.
A day after Ford and the UAW came to terms on a possible contract, the company announcing the strike has cost it $1.3 billion, and it's withdrawing its earnings guidance for the rest of the year. Ford is the first of the Detroit 3 automakers to settle with the UAW. GM and Stellantis still talking. How likely are workers at Ford to approve the deal? Elise joins us in the studio to break it down. Elise.
Well, workers seem optimistic, David. At the Ford Michigan assembly plant in Wayne, they have been packing up the supplies they used on the picket lines, the firewood, the tents, and the burn barrels. They can't wait to see the details of what they say sounds like a winning contract.
I'm glad that they were able to squeeze every penny that they could, out of the company.
Workers will get 25% pay increases and cost of living raises. That'll bring wages to above $40 an hour by the end of the contract. Temporary workers will get raises of more than 150%, and retirees will get annual bonuses. Those numbers are music to the ears of Walter Robinson, a worker at the Wayne plant.
It's definitely going to be life-changing for the people, some of the people that came in after 2008. And it's definitely going to be a career and not just a job.
And that's the way Stacey Tompkins is looking at it. She's worked at this plant for 34 years.
I'm very happy with the contract. And I'm a legacy employee, so in all actuality, people are going to say, well, we don't get as much. But I don't feel that way. I feel we've paved the way for the younger generation, just like my father's generation paved the way for us.
The UAW National Ford Council will meet in Detroit on Sunday. If they like the tentative agreement, they'll share specific details of it that night before it goes to Ford's 57,000 UAW members for ratification. Elise Ramey, back to you.
Elise, thank you. An automotive analyst says even if workers ratify the contract, fully restarting production requires several things to fall into place.
First, Ford has to contact its suppliers and make sure they've already called back anybody that they laid off so they can start production. And in fact, those tier 1 suppliers are going to have to contact their tier 2 suppliers and make sure the same thing happened. And the tier 2s contact the tier 3s. In addition to that, the automakers are going to have to make sure that the truck haulers are ready to start hauling cars from the factories to the dealerships. So there's this big machine that's got to get started again.
He figures resuming production will take at least a week.
And the radar tonight does show that we have at least a few showers passing through. If that'll pull up here, sorry about that. Does look like they're mostly in our western counties tonight. And then eventually, as we take a look at the thumb, we've got a few more scattered showers there. Some of what passed through initially this evening eventually fizzled out, but we still have a lot of moisture to go. We take a look in the sky tracker. It's all a part of the same system that is still well to the west of us, but finally we'll pick up the pace as we head through tomorrow, eventually bringing the cooler temperatures this weekend. And you see the snow off to the north and west of us. Potentially our first snowflakes early next week because of the big cool down. Now they will be lake effect snowflakes, not necessarily system snow, but still we are getting to that time of year now. 64 in Saginaw, 64 Bay City, 69 in Flint, and 68 in Bad Axe. Winds still out of the southwest, anywhere between 5 and 15 miles per hour. Gusting a little bit higher than that. Even Caseville reporting around 21 miles per hour tonight. Rain continues to be possible through the overnight, and it will start to taper off through tomorrow morning. Temperatures do remain mild until that point. We'll take a look at temperatures tomorrow and how big the cool down is for this weekend coming up.
Chris, thank you. A special meeting tonight for the Flint City Council to try to decide on spending money from the American Rescue Plan Act. But as Trey Harris reports, little got done.
We voted on one resolution in 3 hours, so it is not as productive as I had hoped it was going to be.
The first hour of tonight's special meeting was spent entirely on infighting among city council members, with nothing about ARPA funds being discussed.
Unfortunately, the same issues that are brought up at the previous council meetings were brought up today.
Finally, moving into the public comment portion of the meeting, residents spoke their minds about their frustration with the infighting happening between council members. One person boldly stated it's a matter of rich versus poor, as a few public comments focused directly on home improvements for homes around the city.
Forget all that and put the money where it needs to go. We need our stuff taken care of in this city. And that's all
3 hours into the meeting, the first resolution on the agenda, having to do with $1 million in ARPA funds being allocated to the Flint RX Kids program, was voted and approved 5-1.
Pregnant mothers and new mothers definitely need funds to take care of their children.
That $1 million will allow $55 million to be granted to the program, but mixed feelings plague the city council, with some feeling the priority should be on home improvements when talking about what to do with the ARPA funds.
We've already created a budget for it, so a council member that says they just need more time, I'm not understanding. We have done that as a council, we have voted on it, it's passed, and now we just have to vote on these individual resolutions.
Reporting in Flint, Trey Harris, WNEM TV5.
City Council has until December 31st to allocate those funds. Members did vote to approve up to $1 million for Flint's RX Kids program. It's an initiative to provide direct cash payments to mothers during pregnancy and during the first year of a child's life. A multi-state search underway tonight for a U.S. Army reservist who police say shot 18 people to death last night in Maine. Armed agents surrounded a home belonging to 40-year-old Robert Card, the prime suspect in the shooting at a bowling alley and restaurant in Lewiston. They called for him to come out, which we're told is a standard announcement for a search warrant.
He should be considered armed and dangerous.
Police say Card walked into the bowling alley with a rifle and opened fire, killing 7. He then went to a nearby restaurant and killed another 8. Card is an Army reservist who was hospitalized this summer for mental health issues, including hearing voices.
He's got a lot of problems up in his head right now. One of them's schizophrenic.
Law enforcement intelligence officials say Card's girlfriend recently dumped him, calling it a significantly destabilizing event. New tonight, a 34-year-old Flushing man died in a 2-car crash this afternoon in Grand Blanc Township. Investigators say he was driving east on McCandlish Road when his car collided with another turning onto McCandlish from Misty Meadows. Police say he was not wearing a seatbelt. The other driver was not injured. A TV5 follow-up to yesterday's story about dozens of people in Flint and Genesee County who face uncertain futures after the homes they live in were sold in a bulk at a tax auction last month. Today we're hearing from the company that bought those homes.
The intention is to renovate properties that need to be renovated, generate tax revenue, employment to the city.
The company, 2 Life Real Estate, spent $1.4 million on 230 properties, one of which is occupied by J.D. Smith of Flint. Smith now must make arrangements either to rent or to move. The real estate company manager tells TV5 he's willing to work with Smith as best as he can.
You have to take in consideration that he no longer owns the house, others own it, and we have a responsibility of fixing it up and putting it back into a tax generating property.
He says any decision to evict will be made on a case-by-case basis. Coming up, the U.S. Coast Guard reveals a massive haul of seized illegal drugs. How much? Plus.
But at the same time, we've all sat next to tables where, hey, do something with that kid.
And if the parents don't, a restaurant will. Its answer to keeping unruly children in line. And a woman in custody in the deadly shooting of a bus driver. Next.